The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out like a vast arena. Thousands of seats rose in circles around the central speaking platform. Beings from across the galaxy filled those seats. Some had scales, others had fur. Some floated, in special tanks filled with gas. Others stood on multiple legs or hung from the ceiling with wing-like arms. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim sat in the small section marked for Earth. Next to him, Captain So-Min Park watched everything with sharp eyes. They had only been coming to these meetings for 6 months. Earth was still the newest member of the council. The other beings barely looked at them. Most thought humans were too simple to matter much. Earth had no energy shields. Their ships moved slowly compared to others. Their weapons shot metal bullets instead of energy beams. To the galaxy, humans seemed like children playing with toys. Admiral Kekstar of the Vorthak Empire stepped onto the speaking platform. The Vorthaks looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. Their scales were dark green, and their eyes glowed red. They ruled over 50 worlds and had the strongest military force in their part of the galaxy. Fellow council members, Admiral Kekstar said in a voice that echoed through the chamber, I come before you today to announce a great expansion of Vorthak territory. The chamber buzzed with quiet talk. Expansions usually meant taking over empty worlds or buying them from smaller species. This seemed normal enough. The Vorthak Empire will soon claim the world called Earth. The buzzing stopped. Complete silence filled the chamber. Hyunwoo felt every eye turn toward the human section. So-Min kept her face calm, but her hand moved closer to her datapad. Counselor Velthar of the Nexari people stood up quickly. The Nexari looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin and large black eyes. They were known for being peaceful and wise. Admiral Kekstar, Velthar said, Earth is a council member world. The ancient treaties protect all member species from attack. Kekstar laughed. The sound was harsh and cold. Treaties protect civilized worlds, Counselor. Look at these humans. They fight with metal bullets. Their ships burn chemical fuel. They have no shields, no energy weapons, no proper technology. They are primitives who stumbled into space by accident. More council members began to speak at once. The Eldari representative, Counselor Mothra, fluttered her wing arms nervously. The Keth delegate made clicking sounds that meant worry in their language. But not all the voices sounded concerned. The Admiral has a point, said Counselor Grex of the Beltori Trade Union. Humans have nothing that could stop a proper military force. Their weapons are ancient, agreed Counselor Zint from the Mining Guild. Chemical explosives and metal projectiles. My construction crews have better equipment. Hyunwoo watched the debate grow louder. Some council members wanted to protect Earth. Others seemed to think the Vorthaks were right. Humans did look weak compared to the rest of the galaxy. Admiral Kekstar raised his clawed hand for silence. I do not ask for permission. I simply inform the Council of what will happen. The Vorthak fleet will arrive at Earth in 10 days. The humans will surrender when they see our ships. No one needs to die. And if they don't surrender? Asked Velthar. Kekstar's red eyes glowed brighter. Then they will learn why 1,000 worlds fear the Vorthak Empire. The Council voted on whether to send peacekeeping forces to protect Earth. The vote failed. Too many species thought humans would give up without a fight. Others worried about starting a war with the Vorthaks over such a weak species. Through all of this, Hyunwoo said nothing. So-Min took notes on her datapad but stayed quiet. Some council members noticed how calm the humans seemed. Shouldn't they be scared? Shouldn't they be begging for help? When the formal session ended, many aliens approached the human delegation. Most offered sympathy for their coming defeat. Some suggested that surrender might save human lives. Counselor Velthar spoke privately with Hyunwoo. Ambassador, you must convince your people to surrender quickly. The Vorthaks are not known for mercy with those who resist. Hyunwoo nodded politely. Thank you for your concern, Counselor. I will make sure my government knows about this threat. Perhaps some of your people could evacuate to other worlds, suggested Mothra. We could find places for refugees. That's very kind, So-Min said. But I think most humans will want to stay on Earth. The aliens looked puzzled. Why would anyone stay to fight a battle they couldn't win? As the chamber emptied, Admiral Kekstar approached the human section. His soldiers followed behind him. They were all heavily armed and wore armor that shimmered with energy fields. "Humans," Kekstar said, looking down at Hyunwoo and So-min. "You seem calm for beings about to lose their world." Hyunwoo stood up slowly. He was much smaller than the Vorthak Admiral, but he met those red eyes without fear. "We appreciate you giving us advance notice, Admiral. It's very polite of you." Kekstar's head tilted to one side. "Polite? You think this is politeness? Well, you could have just attacked without warning," So-min said. "This way we have time to prepare." "Prepare?" Kekstar laughed again. "What can you possibly prepare? Your ships are slow, your weapons are weak. Your soldiers have no real armor. What could humans do against the Vorthak fleet?" Hyunwoo smiled slightly. "I guess we'll find out in 10 days. Something in that smile made Admiral Kekstar uncomfortable. He had conquered many worlds. He had seen fear, anger, and desperation in the faces of those about to be defeated. But he had never seen this strange, calm confidence. "You should use those 10 days to convince your people to surrender," Kekstar said. "It will save lives." "We'll certainly let them know you're coming," Hyunwoo replied. The Vorthaks left the chamber, followed by most of the other council members. Soon, only the humans remained in the great space. So-min looked at her datapad. "The fastest ship to Earth can get there in 8 days. That gives us 2 days to get ready. Will that be enough time?" Hyunwoo asked. So-min thought about the military preparations she knew were already happening on Earth. Humans had been planning for this possibility since they first met alien species. Most of the galaxy thought humans were peaceful because they wanted to trade and explore. But humans had never stopped being ready for war. "It'll have to be," she said. They left the council chambers and headed for their ship. Behind them, groups of aliens still talked about the coming invasion. Most felt sorry for the humans. Some thought the Vorthaks were being too harsh. But almost all of them expected the same result. Earth would fall in a few days. The humans would surrender or die. Either way, the galaxy would have one less primitive species to worry about. None of them noticed the small recording device So-min had left behind. It would keep sending information about council discussions back to Earth. Human intelligence services wanted to know how the galaxy really felt about them. The answer was becoming very clear. The emergency meeting room deep under the Earth Defense Command Center was full of tension. General Taeho Lee stood at the head of a long table surrounded by military leaders, scientists, and government officials from around the world. The message from Ambassador Hyunwoo had arrived 6 hours ago. War was coming to Earth. "Ladies and gentlemen," General Lee said, "we have 8 days before the Vorthak fleet arrives. Admiral Min-Soo Yang will brief us on our current military status." Admiral Yang activated a holographic display showing Earth's orbital defenses. "We have 200 ships in our space fleet. They're smaller and slower than Vorthak vessels, but they're tough. Our weapons are kinetic railguns and nuclear missiles. The aliens think these are primitive, but they pack more punch than energy weapons at close range." Dr. Ji-un Choi, Earth's leading expert on alien biology, stood up next. She had spent months studying the Vorthaks during diplomatic meetings. "I've analyzed Vorthak physiology and technology. They're physically strong but have weak points. Their technology is advanced but has limits." She changed the display to show a Vorthak soldier. "They rely heavily on energy shields and plasma weapons, but their shields work on specific frequencies. If we can disrupt those frequencies, their protection fails." "What about their ships?" asked General Park from the Asian Defense Union. "Their ships are fast and well-armed," Dr. Choi continued, "but they're designed for fighting other energy-based weapons. They've never faced kinetic projectiles or nuclear warheads. Their armor might not handle the impact." President Yoon Ha-song, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "Dr. Choi, in your opinion, do the Vorthaks expect any real resistance from us?" "No, Madam President. They think we'll surrender as soon as we see their fleet. In their experience, primitive species always give up when faced with superior technology." General Lee smiled grimly. "Then we have our first advantage. They're not expecting a real fight. Commander Young Jin Bei of the Civilian Defense Corps raised her hand. General, what about non-military ships? We have thousands of cargo haulers, mining vessels, and transport ships. We're going to arm them, Admiral Yang replied. Any ship that can mount weapons will become part of our fleet. The Vorthax won't expect civilian vessels to fight. Dr. Wu Jin Nam, the military psychologist, had been studying alien combat reports. I've been reviewing how other species fight. Most galactic civilizations engage in what they call civilized warfare. They have rules about targeting, surrender protocols, and limits on destruction. What kind of limits? President Song asked. They don't target civilian areas. They accept surrender immediately. They don't fight to the death. When facing superior forces, they negotiate rather than resist. General Lee nodded slowly. And humans? Humans don't follow those rules, sir. We fight until we win or until we're all dead. We target anything that helps the enemy. We don't accept defeat until there's no choice. The room was quiet for a moment. Everyone understood what Dr. Nam was saying. Human warfare was brutal compared to the rest of the galaxy. Captain Hanul, one of Earth's best ship commanders, spoke up. Are we really going to fight like that? Full human-style war? President Song stood up. Her voice was firm and clear. The Vorthax are coming to take our world. They think we're too weak to matter. They expect us to surrender our planet, our freedom, our future without a fight. She looked around the room at each person. I say we show them what humans do when someone threatens our home. The next few hours were spent planning. Every military base on Earth began preparing for battle. Weapons factories started working around the clock. Civilian ships reported to military depots for armor and weapons installation. But the most important work was happening in secret labs around the world. Human scientists had been studying alien technology for months. They had learned how Vorthak, shields and weapons worked. Now they were building weapons specifically designed to fight those systems. Dr. Kim Soo-jin from the Technology Division explained their progress. We've created bullets that vibrate at frequencies that disrupt alien shields. Our nuclear warheads have been modified to release electromagnetic pulses that interfere with their ship systems. What about their plasma weapons? Asked Admiral Yang. Plasma dissipates quickly in atmosphere and is stopped by dense materials. Our ships have extra armor made from tungsten and titanium. It should absorb most of their energy weapons. General Lee reviewed the final plans. Earth's strategy was simple but effective. Let the Vorthax come close, thinking humans would surrender, then hit them with everything at once. 2 days before the invasion, President Song addressed the world. Every human on Earth watched as she spoke from the Global Defense Command Center. My fellow humans, she began, in 2 days, an alien army will arrive at our world. They come here because they think we are weak. They believe our technology is primitive. They expect us to surrender without a fight. She paused, looking directly into the camera. They are about to learn that being primitive and being weak are very different things. The president continued. For the past 6 months, we have tried to be peaceful members of the galactic community. We offered trade, friendship, and cooperation. But some species see our peaceful nature as weakness. The Vorthak Empire has decided to take our world by force. They think our weapons are too simple to hurt them. They think our ships are too slow to challenge them. They think our people are too civilized to fight back. President Song's voice grew stronger. They're wrong about our weapons, they're wrong about our ships, and they're very wrong about our people. Humans have been fighting for survival since we first walked upright. We have never been the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced, but we have always been the most stubborn. When someone threatens our families, our homes, our way of life, we don't negotiate. We don't surrender. We fight. And we keep fighting until we win or until there's nothing left to fight with. The Vorthax think they know what war is. They're about to get an education in human warfare, and class is about to begin. The broadcast ended with scenes from around the world. Soldiers preparing weapons, ships being loaded with ammunition, families saying goodbye to their children as parents left for battle. But there was something else in those images that would have surprised the Vorthax. The humans weren't afraid. They were angry. Admiral Yang stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Determination. Through the windows, he could see dozens of other ships taking their positions around Earth's orbit. Some were military vessels with heavy armor and big guns. Others were civilian ships hastily converted for battle. Captain So-Min Park's voice came over the communication system from the flagship Defiance. All ships, this is Fleet Command. Enemy forces will arrive in 36 hours. Remember, they expect us to surrender. They expect us to run. They expect us to behave like civilized people. Her voice carried a dangerous edge. Let's disappoint them. Across the solar system, human forces took their positions. Some hid behind asteroids. Others waited on the dark side of the moon. A few brave crews positioned themselves at the very edge of the solar system, ready to send back information about the enemy fleet. Earth was ready for war. The only question was whether the Vorthax were ready for humans. The Galactic Council's emergency monitoring station buzzed with activity. Representatives from dozens of species watched the screens showing the solar system. They had come to witness what they believed would be a quick surrender by the primitive humans. Councillor Velthar of the Nexari sat in the front row, her blue skin pale with worry. Next to her, Councillor Mothra fluttered her wings nervously. Even the usually calm Keth representative was clicking rapidly in distress. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim sat in his designated chair, watching the screens with the same calm expression he always wore. Other council members kept glancing at him, wondering why he wasn't begging for help or showing signs of panic. Vorthak fleet entering the outer edge of the human system, announced the monitoring technician. Fleet composition, 50 battle cruisers, 30 destroyers, and 20 support vessels. The screens showed the massive Vorthak ships moving through space. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields. Plasma cannons charged along their sides. To most council members, the fleet looked unstoppable. Admiral Kekstar's voice came through the communication system. Human vessels, this is Admiral Kekstar of the Vorthak Empire. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and your people will be spared. Resist, and we will take your world by force. The response came immediately. Captain So-Min Park's voice was clear and steady. Vorthak Fleet, this is Captain Park of the Earth Defense Force. You are not welcome in our system. Leave now, or we will make you leave. Laughter echoed through the Vorthak communication channel. Little human, you have 200 small ships against our 100 war vessels. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Surrender while you still can. We respectfully decline, Captain Park replied. If you want Earth, come and take it. The first Vorthak ships moved forward confidently. Their shields glowed brighter as they prepared to show the humans how outmatched they were. Energy sensors detected the approaching human ships, small and slow compared to the alien vessels. First human attack wave detected, the technician announced. Kinetic projectiles incoming. The council members watched as streams of metal bullets and small missiles flew toward the Vorthak fleet. The alien shields flared as they absorbed the impacts. Not a single shot got through. Pathetic, muttered Councillor Grex. Their weapons can't even scratch Vorthak armor. But Hyunwoo was smiling slightly. Several council members noticed and felt uneasy. Why would the human ambassador smile while watching his fleet fail? The second wave of human attacks looked different. The projectiles moved at the same speed, but something had changed. When they hit the Vorthak shields, instead of bouncing off, they seemed to vibrate and buzz. Shield fluctuations detected in Vorthak vessels, the technician reported, sounding confused. Energy barriers are becoming unstable. Admiral Kekstar's voice came through the speakers, no longer sounding amused. What are these weapons? How are they affecting our shields? Dr. Ji-Un Choi's voice answered from the human fleet. They're tuned to your shield frequency, Admiral. We spent months studying your technology during diplomatic visits. Did you think we were just being friendly? The third wave of human attacks came as Vorthak shields flickered and failed. This time the projectiles weren't just metal bullets, they were nuclear warheads. The first nuclear explosion lit up the monitoring screens. Then another. Then dozens more. The council chamber fell silent as they watched Vorthak ships disappear in balls of nuclear fire. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Mothra. "Those are atomic weapons. No civilized species uses atomic weapons in space combat." "Humans aren't civilized," Hyunwoo said quietly. "That's what you keep forgetting." The Vorthak fleet tried to retreat to a safer distance, but human ships pursued them. The council watched in shock as small human fighters rammed themselves into damaged Vorthak cruisers, rather than retreat when their weapons ran out. "Why aren't they ejecting?" asked Velthar in horror. "Their ships are destroyed. Why don't they save themselves?" "Because saving themselves means the enemy ship survives to fight again," Hyunwoo explained. "Humans don't fight to survive. We fight to win." Commander Youngjin Bei's voice came through the communication system as her cargo ship, hastily armed with missiles, attacked a Vorthak destroyer. "This is the civilian vessel Strong Wind. We're a mining ship, but today we're exterminators." Her ship, built to haul ore through asteroid fields, absorbed plasma cannon hits that would have destroyed a proper warship. When her weapons ran out, she rammed her vessel into the alien ship's engine section. The battle raged for hours. Every time the Vorthaks thought they had gained an advantage, more human ships appeared from unexpected directions. Some came from behind Earth's moon. Others had been hiding in asteroid fields. A few even emerged from the surface of Earth itself, having been disguised as ordinary buildings. "How many ships do they have?" Admiral Kextar demanded over the radio. Captain Park's reply was cold. "Every ship that can fly is now a warship. Every human who can fight is now a soldier. Every piece of metal that can hold a weapon is now part of our fleet." By the end of the first day, the Vorthak fleet had lost 30 ships. The humans had lost twice as many, but they kept fighting. More human vessels kept arriving from across the solar system. Admiral Jae-sung Kang commanded a group of ships that had been hiding behind Jupiter's moons. His force consisted entirely of converted civilian vessels, passenger liners, cargo haulers, and even a few pleasure craft. "Attention, Vorthak fleet," he broadcast. "You came here to conquer primitives. Congratulations, you found us. Now let us show you what primitives do when you threaten their children." His makeshift fleet attacked the Vorthak rear guard with suicidal fury. Ships designed to carry tourists charged plasma-armed destroyers. Freight haulers loaded with explosives detonated themselves against alien cruisers. The council members watched in growing horror and fascination. This wasn't how civilized species fought wars. This was something older, more brutal, more desperate. "They're not fighting to win territory." Dr. Wu Jin Nam's voice came through the human communication channel. "They're fighting for survival, and humans are very good at surviving." On the second day, the tide began to turn. The Vorthak fleet, designed for quick conquests against helpless planets, had never faced an enemy that refused to acknowledge defeat. Their crews were demoralized by the constant attacks from ships that should have been helpless. Captain Hanul Oh led the final attack of the second day. Her ship, the Stubborn, had taken severe damage, but was still fighting. Half her crew was dead, but the survivors kept firing. "Admiral Kextar," she broadcast on an open channel. "You wanted to see how humans fight. Are you enjoying the lesson?" The Vorthak admiral's response was filled with rage and fear. "You're all insane. Civilized beings don't fight like this." "You're right," Captain O replied as her ship fired its last missiles. "Civilized beings surrender when they're outgunned. Civilized beings negotiate when they're losing. Civilized beings value their own lives more than victory." Her ship was hit by plasma fire and began to break apart, but her voice continued, clear and strong. "Good thing we're not civilized." The monitoring station in the council chambers was completely silent now. Even the technical staff had stopped talking. They were watching something that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. Ambassador Hyunwoo finally stood up. He looked around at the shocked faces of the other council members. "Councillor Velthar," he said politely, "you asked me earlier why humans seem so calm about this invasion." The Nexari councillor nodded, unable to speak. "It's because this isn't an invasion," Hyunwoo continued. "This is a learning experience. The Vorthaks are learning what happens when you threaten a human world. and the rest of you are learning who humans really are." He pointed at the screens showing the ongoing battle. "You see primitive weapons and think we're weak. You see old technology and think we're helpless. You see our peaceful diplomacy and think we're soft. But you forgot to ask the most important question. If humans are so primitive and peaceful, why do we have so many weapons?" The answer was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. Humans weren't primitive because they couldn't build better weapons. They were primitive because they had never stopped needing to fight for their survival, and now the galaxy was learning what that really meant. The fourth day of battle began with Admiral Kextar making a decision that shocked his own officers. The Vorthak fleet, reduced to less than half its original size, began retreating from the solar system. "This is impossible," he growled to his second-in-command. "These primitives should have surrendered by now. How are they still fighting?" Commander Vexlor, his scales scarred from the desperate battles, looked at the tactical display. "Sir, we've lost 37 ships. The humans have lost over 300 vessels, but they keep replacing them. Every civilian ship in their system has joined the fight. Civilian ships don't fight military battles," Kextar roared. "That's not how war works. The humans don't seem to know that, sir. The retreat should have been the end of the conflict. In any normal war between civilized species, the attacking force would withdraw, negotiations would begin, and some sort of peaceful settlement would be reached. But the humans didn't let them retreat." Captain So-Min Park's voice came over the communication channels, reaching both the fleeing Vorthaks and the watching council. "Vorthak fleet, you came here to take our world. The battle isn't over just because you're leaving." Her ship, the Defiance, led a pursuit force of 60 human vessels beyond the edge of the solar system. These weren't fresh ships. They were the battered survivors of 3 days of brutal combat. But they kept chasing the retreating aliens. In the council monitoring station, the representatives watched in stunned silence. Councillor Velthar turned to Ambassador Hyunwoo with wide, frightened eyes. "Ambassador, your fleet is pursuing the Vorthaks beyond your system. That's aggressive warfare. Council law forbids member species from attacking others outside their own territory." Hyunwoo's expression remained calm. "Councillor, the Vorthaks declared war on Earth. They came to our system with the intention of conquest. Under human law, that makes them a continuing threat until they surrender unconditionally." "But they're retreating," protested Councillor Mothra. "Retreating isn't surrendering." Captain Park's voice came through the speakers. "They could regroup and attack again. We're not going to let that happen." The chase continued across 3 star systems. The Vorthak ships, designed for speed and quick strikes, should have easily outrun the slower human vessels. But the human ships had one advantage the aliens hadn't expected. They carried more fuel because they had been built for long exploration missions. Admiral Min-Soo Yang commanded the pursuit from his flagship Relentless. His ship had taken heavy damage in the solar system battle, but his engineering crew had performed miracles keeping it running. "All ships, this is Admiral Yang," he broadcast to the human fleet. "The enemy is heading toward the Vorthak military base at Kepler 442. We're going to follow them home." The words sent a chill through every alien listening. Following a retreating enemy to their own territory was something no civilized species had done in thousands of years. Dr. Woojin Nam's voice came through the human communication channel, addressing the council members who were monitoring the chase. "This is probably confusing for you. Most galactic species fight until one side has an advantage, then they negotiate. Humans fight until one side can't fight anymore." "But why?" asked Councillor Grex, his voice filled with genuine confusion. "The Vorthaks are no longer a threat to Earth. Why continue fighting?" Commander Young Jin Bei answered from her replacement ship, a commandeered passenger liner armed with mining lasers. "Because they'll just attack someone else later. Maybe another weak species that can't fight back. We're not just defending Earth anymore. We're making sure this doesn't happen again." The human pursuit fleet caught up with the Vorthaks at the edge of their home system. The aliens had hoped to regroup and make a stand at their heavily defended military base on Kepler 442b. The planet was surrounded by orbital defense platforms and protected by automated missile systems. Captain Hanyul Oh, now commanding the Destroyer Vindication, after her previous ship was destroyed, studied the Vorthak defenses. Admiral Yang, they've got at least 100 defensive platforms around that planet. Those things are designed to stop invasion fleets. Good thing we're not trying to invade, Yang replied. We're trying to end this war. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. Admiral Yang ordered his ships to do something no civilized species would ever consider. They crash-landed on the planet's surface. All ships, prepare for atmospheric entry, Yang commanded. We're taking this fight to the ground. The orbital defenses were designed to stop ships in space, not to prevent landing attempts. As human vessels plunged through the atmosphere, many were destroyed by defensive fire, but enough survived to land and continue fighting. The scene was unlike anything in modern galactic warfare. Human soldiers, armed with chemical weapons and metal projectiles, fought their way across the surface of an alien world, while their damaged ships provided fire support from improvised landing sites. Colonel Dong-Hyun Kim led ground forces from the crashed transport ship Determination. His troops had landed in the middle of a Vorthak military complex and were fighting their way toward the command center. This is Colonel Kim to all human forces, he broadcast. The enemy has air support and energy weapons. We have bullets and explosives. I like our chances. The Vorthak defenders had never faced ground combat like this. Their tactics were based on fighting other energy-armed forces with shields and advanced armor. They had no experience with enemies who used chemical explosives, metal projectiles, and what humans called dirty fighting. Sergeant Mi-young Choi set up a machine gun position using rubble from a destroyed building. When Vorthak soldiers in energy armor tried to advance, her chemical bullets punched through their shields and armor like they weren't there. The armor works great against energy weapons, she reported to her commander. But it can't stop good, old-fashioned lead. The battle raged across the planet's surface for 2 days. Human forces, vastly outnumbered and fighting with primitive weapons, somehow continued to advance. They used tactics that the civilized galaxy had forgotten: ambushes, booby traps, and what military historians would later call aggressive creativity. Lieutenant Sung-Ho Park captured a Vorthak communication center by filling a transport vehicle with explosives and driving it straight through the facility's energy barrier. The barrier stopped energy weapons but couldn't stop a truck full of chemical explosives. Human forces are using suicide attacks, the terrified Vorthak communications officer reported to his command. They're destroying our positions by ramming vehicles into them. Fall back to the secondary defensive line, came the reply from Vorthak command. We need to regroup. But there was no safe place to regroup. Human forces seemed to be everywhere at once. Small teams of soldiers appeared behind Vorthak lines, attacked key positions, and disappeared before reinforcements could respond. Captain Jae-won Lee led one such team. They had landed 20 kilometers from their target and walked through hostile territory for a day to reach a Vorthak supply depot. When they attacked, they destroyed enough ammunition and fuel to supply an entire division. This is Captain Lee to all units, he reported after the successful raid. Target destroyed. Enemy supplies eliminated. We're moving to the next objective. What's the next objective? Asked his sergeant. Lee looked at his map, showing dozens of Vorthak military installations. Everything. By the third day of ground fighting, Vorthak resistance began to collapse. Their soldiers were demoralized by fighting an enemy that refused to follow civilized rules of warfare. Human forces used every dirty trick in the book, and then invented new ones. The final assault came when Admiral Yang himself led a direct attack on the main Vorthak command center. His ship, too damaged to fly properly, made a controlled crash landing right in the middle of the enemy base. All human forces, this is Admiral Yang, he broadcast as his troops fought their way out of the wreckage. We're ending this today. The attack on the command center lasted 6 hours. When it was over, Admiral Kekstar stood in his ruined headquarters, surrounded by human soldiers pointing primitive but effective weapons at him. I surrender, he said, his voice filled with defeat and confusion. But I don't understand. How did you win? We had better weapons, better armor, better technology. Admiral Yang, his uniform torn and dirty from the ground fighting, looked at the alien general with something that might have been pity. "You had better technology," he agreed, "but we had something you forgot existed. We had the will to use whatever it takes to protect our home." The surrender of Admiral Kextar was broadcast across the galaxy. For the first time in anyone's memory, a primitive species had not only defended themselves against a superior force, but had pursued that force to its home and defeated it there. In the council chambers, Ambassador Hyunwoo stood up to address the stunned representatives. "Fellow council members," he said in the same calm voice he had always used, "I believe this concludes the discussion about whether humans deserve protection under council law." No one argued with him. 3 weeks after the Vorthak Empire's easy conquest was supposed to end, their homeworld formally surrendered to Earth. The images broadcast across the galaxy showed something that shook every civilized species to their core: human soldiers marching through the Vorthak capital while alien civilians cheered. The Vorthaks weren't cheering because they loved their conquerors. They were cheering because the humans had done something no one expected. They had liberated the civilian population from their own military government. General Taeho Lee stood in the former Vorthak military headquarters, now serving as temporary human command. Around him, his staff worked to organize food distribution, medical care, and basic services for a planet whose military had collapsed. "Sir," reported Colonel Dong Hyun Kim, "the civilian authorities want to meet with you. They're asking about surrender terms." General Lee looked tired. The ground campaign had been brutal, even in victory. "Tell them there are no surrender terms. For civilians, we didn't come here to conquer their people. We came here to stop their military from attacking others." This message, when it reached the Galactic Council, caused another wave of shock. Conquering species were supposed to demand tribute, territory, or servitude from defeated enemies. Humans were offering to rebuild what they had destroyed and then leave. The emergency council session was the largest gathering in galactic history. Representatives from every known species packed the great chamber. At the center of attention sat Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim, still calm, still polite, but now commanding a very different kind of respect. Councillor Velthar spoke first, her voice shaking slightly. "Ambassador Kim, your species has achieved something unprecedented. You have defeated a major galactic power and occupied their homeworld. The Council must ask, what are humanity's intentions?" Hyunwoo stood slowly. Around him, the chamber fell silent. Every being present knew they were witnessing a moment that would reshape galactic politics forever. Councillor Velthar, honored. "Council members," he began. 3 weeks ago, Admiral Kextar told this chamber that humans were too primitive to deserve protection under council law. He was right about one thing. We are primitive. He paused, looking around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. We're so primitive that we still fight for our freedom when someone tries to take it. We're so primitive that we don't surrender when the odds are against us. We're so primitive that we keep our promises even when it's difficult. But Admiral Kexatar was wrong about something important. He thought primitive meant weak. He forgot that his advanced species only exists because primitives like us fought and died to protect what mattered to them. The chamber remained silent. Many council members were thinking about their own species' histories, remembering ancient times when they too had to fight for survival. President Yoon Ha-song's voice came through the communication system from Earth. She was addressing the council directly for the first time since the war began. "Honored representatives," she said, "humans never wanted to be conquerors. We wanted to be explorers, traders, friends. We joined this council hoping to learn from older, wiser species. But some of you saw our peaceful nature and thought it meant we were helpless. You forgot that there's a difference between choosing not to fight and being unable to fight." Councillor Mothra fluttered her wings nervously. "President Song, what does humanity want from the galaxy now? You have proven your military strength. Will you use it to demand territory or tribute?" "We want the same thing we wanted before this war started," President Song replied. "We want to explore the galaxy, trade with other species, and learn from different cultures. But we also want something else now." "What is that?" asked Councillor Grex. Respect. Admiral Min Su Yang's voice joined the conversation from the Vorthak homeworld. We want other species to understand that being peaceful doesn't mean being weak. We want them to know that humans will defend themselves and their friends. Dr. Wu Jin Nam, now serving as Earth's military psychologist and cultural advisor, added her voice to the discussion. The galaxy has forgotten how to fight for what matters. You've all become so civilized that you can't imagine dying for your principles. That makes you vulnerable to species like the Vorthaks. What are you suggesting? Asked Velthar. I'm suggesting that the galaxy needs to remember that peace is only possible when people are willing to fight for it. Dr. Nam replied, humans are willing to be that reminder. The council chamber buzzed with quiet conversations in dozens of alien languages. The implications of what they were hearing were enormous. Humans weren't threatening to conquer the galaxy. They were offering to protect it. Ambassador Hyunwoo continued his address. The Vorthak Empire is finished as a military threat. Their subject worlds are declaring independence. Their military commanders are surrendering. But this creates a new problem. He activated a holographic display showing the Vorthak territory. 50 worlds that were kept in line by fear are now free. Some of them don't know how to govern themselves. Others are fighting civil wars. Pirates and raiders are moving in to take advantage of the chaos. What do you propose? Asked Counselor Zint from the Mining Guild. Humans will help stabilize the region, Hyunwoo replied. We'll provide security while these worlds figure out their own governments. We'll protect shipping lanes and stop raiders. And when everything is peaceful again, we'll leave. The chamber erupted in surprised chatter. No conquering species in galactic history had ever offered to withdraw voluntarily from conquered territory. Captain So-Min Park, now promoted to admiral, added her voice from the fleet command ship. We're not interested in building an empire. Empires require you to rule over people who don't want to be ruled. That's not what humans do. Then what do humans do? Asked a representative from the Outer Rim Alliance. We make friends, Captain Hanul-O replied from her new ship. We defend our friends when they're threatened, and we make sure that bullies like the Vorthaks think twice before attacking peaceful worlds. Over the following hours, the Council worked out what would become known as the Terran Doctrine. Humans would serve as peacekeepers in unstable regions, but only at the request of the local governments. They would protect shipping lanes and trade routes from pirates and raiders. Most importantly, they would respond to any attempt by one species to conquer another. The doctrine essentially made humans the galaxy's police force, but with strict limits on their authority. They could only intervene when asked, or when one species attacked another unprovoked. This is an unprecedented arrangement, Counselor Velthar observed. No single species has ever taken responsibility for galactic security. No single species has ever been able to, Hyunwoo replied. Most civilized species have forgotten how to fight effectively. Humans never forgot because we never stopped needing to. Dr. Ji-Eun Choi, now serving as Earth's chief xenobiologist and cultural expert, provided the scientific perspective. We've studied dozens of galactic species over the past months. All of them achieved technological advancement and then became peaceful. They stopped developing military capabilities because they no longer needed them. That's not necessarily bad, she continued. Peace is better than war. But it does make them vulnerable to aggressive species like the Vorthaks. So humans will serve as the sword that protects the plowshare, General Lee said from the Vorthak homeworld. We'll do the fighting so that peaceful species can stay peaceful. The arrangement wasn't without controversy. Some council species worried about giving humans too much power. Others questioned whether a primitive species could be trusted with galactic security. But the results spoke for themselves. Within months, piracy in former Vorthak space dropped to almost zero. Trade routes that had been dangerous for decades became safe. Worlds that had been terrorized by their own military governments began to flourish under human protection. The final scene of this new chapter in galactic history took place 6 months later. Admiral So-Min Park stood on the bridge of the new Earth defense ship Guardian, the first human vessel designed with both human engineering and alien technology. Through the viewports, She could see a convoy of cargo ships from a dozen different species traveling safely through what had once been Vorthak military space. The ships carried everything from Nexari artwork to Eldari medical supplies to human-manufactured goods. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress call from the Kepler system. Unknown raiders are attacking civilian shipping." Admiral Park smiled grimly. It was the same expression she had worn when Admiral Kekstar first threatened Earth. "Set course for Kepler. Maximum speed." "Yes, ma'am. Should we contact the raiders and warn them we're coming?" Park considered this for a moment. "No. Let them figure it out when we arrive. It's more educational that way." As the Guardian and its Outram escort ships jumped to hyperspace, the message was clear throughout the galaxy. The humans had kept their promise. They had become the guardians of galactic peace, and anyone who threatened that peace would learn the same lesson the Vorthaks had learned, that primitive doesn't mean weak, and that some species never forget how to fight for what matters. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of human protection had begun. In the council chambers, Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim finished his monthly report on galactic security. As he concluded, he looked around a